I just want to share some of what I've learned about cognitive function. Um, it's a big topic, and I'm going to try to just cover the basics of it, a really broad sweep this time. And then I'm hoping to make some videos that get into it a little bit more to talk about the individual cognitive functions. But one of the things that I've been learning about is the difference between intuition and metacognition. In a book by Daniel Kahneman, it's called Thinking Fast and Slow. It talks about a system one and a system two, how system one is kind of our base brain. It's where our emotions come from, our feelings, our instinct, our automatic knee jerk reactions to things. It's intuition. Um, then the other one is system two, or what we would call metacognition. And that is where you're thinking from your higher brain, right? From your frontal lobe, you're making thoughts, you're making decisions, you're actually thinking about it. It's not happening reactively. And so I think sometimes with our students, we're seeing a lot of intuition. We're seeing a lot of they're jumping to the answer that they think is right. Some people excel in intuition and they can make it a long way in life just on intuition alone. A lot of famous athletes. Myself, I tend to act more instinctively than I do metacognitively. It's something I'm working on. It's not a flaw so much as it is something that we always want to strive for. We always want to strive for better thinking. So let's talk about what this looks like and why it's so important. When we are using metacognition or higher level thinking, we're able to think about things and use strategies. Is this logical? We're able to think outside of ourselves, look at other people's opinions. We're able to be less biased. We experience the thinking in a way that we are controlling. When we're using intuition, we're reacting. And when we never make it out of that kind of reaction into the higher level thinking, it limits our growth and the growth of our students. So, what can we do? What can we do to be more metacognitive, to help our students be more metacognitive? I think the first thing is to talk about it. I think the first thing is to teach that there are two systems that are running, that we have our knee jerk reaction intuitive system, and we also have our purposeful thinking cognitive function system. And that one is not better than the other. They're both necessary to survival. But if we're getting a lot of emotion from some of our students who are struggling, or if we're getting a lot of emotions in ourselves, or if we see it maybe in our parents, we need to look at, are they actively thinking, or are they living and spending a lot of time in their system one brain? I think I see this with patients with dementia or older adults where it comes out as anger, because when we're in our system one brain, that's the seat of our emotions. And so we're more emotional. We're going to get more angry when we get stuck and we can't find a word we're trying to say. They're so closely woven together, our emotions and our natural instincts. So we're making emotional responses as opposed to thoughtful responses. So I think when we have our kiddos who are getting really emotional, we have a couple things to look at. First, are we teaching to their level? Are we teaching them to a level that they can understand? Or are we teaching them too hard? Or are we not challenging them enough? So I think that's staying in that zone of proximal development is very important. So I think that's the first thing to look at. I think the second thing to look at is, do they know strategies? Have we taught them how to learn? And I think we haven't. I think as a society in general, we just want them to learn. we we lay out the banquet of information instead of teaching our kids how to use cognitive strategies, how to think from their thinking brain. We don't teach them what goes into that. So I think Professor Reuven Feuerstein, through the Feuerstein Institute, he talked a lot about the three phases of cognition, which are input, elaboration, and output. And we need to start thinking about our thinking in that way. First, let's bring it into metacognition where we're actually thinking and not just reacting. Next, what does our input look like? Are we weak? Are we strong in taking in information? Do we have any blocks to taking in information? Do we need to have our hearing checked? Do we need to have our vision checked? And then once that's good, let's talk about the strategies of building focus. Let's talk about the strategies of systematically searching for things. Let's talk about eliminating guessing and instead, using our senses to really know what we're seeing and hearing, what is real. Okay. The next part of that is elaboration. Elaboration is really what goes on in our head. Do our students know how to define a problem? Do they know how to see cause and effect? Can they use logic? Have we taught them how to visualize things? That's really important. That in fact, in the area of reading comprehension, if we haven't taught our students how to visualize, some kids just visualize naturally when they're reading. Some kids don't. And they actually have to be taught when you're reading a story, have a movie running in your head. That's something that can be taught that can help kids improve their reading comprehension just by teaching how to create a movie in your mind. That is an elaboration process. The third one is output. What are the answers we're coming up with? Are we persevering through problems? Are we really giving ourselves and our students enough time to think? Right? Are we practicing self-control? We expect our kids to learn what we teach them without giving them the knowledge or the tools to understand thinking and how to think. So I'm going to try to be talking about that more, but just for now, think about things that you do naturally without thinking about it. Could be cooking, could be cleaning, could be, and it is driving, when you go on autopilot. And then start thinking about the times that you're using metacognition. When are you using problem solving? When are you using self-control? When are you using focus? Start thinking about it in your own life, and then we'll start teaching it to our kids.